The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and I, we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
Weird Way Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Of Mushrooms and Men, a Last of Us podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris Dashew of the Culture Cast, and I am joined by my good friend. He and I used to host a little show about House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, but, well, it's on hiatus because this show replaced it in the run for this year. I guess this is the next big thing that HBO released. Your friend and mine, Yashar.
I think my floors are breathing still.
God. Yep, and on this episode of Mushrooms and Men, we're going to be talking about the 5th episode, which aired a little earlier, folks, because of a little thing in this country called the Superb Owl. Where is the owl? We will not know until he shows up.
Great reference, because I was thinking the exact same thing.
Right. When will the Superb Owl be here?
Do we have to call it the big game for legal reasons? I don't know.
Come on down to my house for the big game. Yeah, I mean, my Matthew Berry is getting there. I just keep watching things that he's in so that I can see that, like, because the Laszlo thing is really just Matt Berry doing the things he's been doing, but a little bit more. Yeah. Primarily Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which is a lot more fun than this show is. Because this show just became like a nightmare overnight. Like this show went bleaker than bleak, obviously.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show.
But now we're
like, what the fuck are they talking about?
But now we're talking about The Last of Us, which Endure and Survive. It feels more like half of an episode than the first part of this 2-parter did. Does that make sense? The first part of this 2-parter, because it is a 2-parter, right?
Yeah.
Feels like more of a complete story than the second half of the episode did.
I almost think this felt a bit more complete.
You think so?
The first part, it was definitely okay, and then I feel like this kind of.
There was a lot of and-thenning at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, and
that's I think what leads to me feeling that way. Is it because it feels like the first half of the episode is almost and then in a way that the Bill and Frank stuff could have been, but they instead committed because they're not going to commit another entire episode to 2 other characters. Right. And that's why I feel like this feels a little bit and then because it's like, and then they meet John Getz's character. And then it's like, okay, like, all right.
How about that opening though? Fuck you, Fedra.
Oh my God. You know what? Like that reminded me of in all kinds of bad ways. just like so many bad things we've seen in the news in the last like 7
January
days.
6th?
Everything. It's just like constant. It's like, stop bombarding us with this, please.
Although that was taken kind of from the in the game. So in the game, you don't actually see the overthrow, but you do see like bodies of Fedra hung up and strung up. And so it's not like it came out of nowhere. And that took place about like 2 weeks before when Joel and Ellie came is when they overthrew Fedra. And it does seem like the one interesting thing about the Fedras, it seems like it's not consistent everywhere. Like the Fedra that Joel had in Boston is like not great, but you can manage with them, it seems like. Whereas the one that they had in KC were really good at killing the clickers, but really bad at being humans.
Yeah, really bad at being human to one another. I guess they were murdering and raping and thieving and just like I guess being terrible, right?
So like it kind of like made those, I guess, images in retrospect be like, okay, I could, like when any oppressed people fights back, it's usually not like a nice non-violent thing, right? It's right. It's like, I want to give back to you the pain that you've inflicted on me. So
right. Oh, totally. And again, like obviously this episode, it opens with, again, more, not a cold open, but a flashback. And we have flashbacks to, like you said, Kansas City being taken over. And we get to see what Melanie Lynskey is just so goddamn upset about. And it's her brother died because he was given up by Henry, whose brother is Sam, who was sick, who could only get meds from Fedra. And so he sold out the big revolutionary in Kansas City, who happened to be Melanie Lynskey's brother, to Fedra. He died. And Henry and Sam are now on the run evading Melanie Lynskey. And that's the setup.
Yeah. I mean, that shows like why she's so mad and like won't let it go, and why she also has so much like support from her people to also understand like what she's brought them from and why like everyone's kind of ride or die with her.
Because it's ultimately less about her. It's about her brother, and they're just sticking around because of her.
Yeah,
connection to her brother, because again, she doesn't seem like a particularly good leader at all.
Remember what Perry says to her. He was like, "Your brother was a great man, but like we didn't." I remember the exact quote. He's like, basically, like we weren't able to get our freedom until you took over. So like I'm with you. So she was effective in getting the things she needed done, but it seems like she was also a bit myopic. Like she was. I mean, we'll get into this later, but she's so laser focused on the one thing, and that's getting revenge. And maybe that helps her get out of the situation they're in, but it also like leads to her downfall later in the episode. So even the opening, she does the trial, right? She goes into the group of the whatever Confederates or
let's call them the stool pigeons, as they would be called.
And she like, if you guys help us find Henry, I will, give you a trial. And she leaves and she's like, no trial. Like, it's just to get information. And they just go execute like 20 people. You
didn't say the best line. She goes, nah, just burn the bodies when you're done. It's faster. She is, look, like she's written to the point where she's twirling her mustache. Like, it's unfortunate that the character is given very little nuance, because the character's not given a whole lot of nuance, but it's intentional, which is why it's not a problem.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind the scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Like, it's intentional to prove a point about the myopicness of revenge and what that means to, be on the course of avenging someone's death or what have you. Because again, like you said, you become so laser focused that you have blinders on to everything, even common sense. Like nobody in their right mind is going to turn their back to a bunch of infected and start walking towards someone else when there are clickers and a bloater and things behind you. But that's where we get to by the end of this episode. And I appreciate that she's written that way. it just feels like it's a shame it's Melanie Linsky, because she's such a good actress that she brings a lot to the character, but because of the way the character is written and the expectations, she's just not given a lot of room to do much with it, other than just be evil, like pure evil, more or less.
But I didn't take her as like pure evil. I took her as like there's this through line in the show of, you know, love justifies the thing. We use love to justify the bad things that we do.
Right.
Henry loves Sam, so he felt justified in saying, like, my brother's life is worth more than your brother's life. And then she's like, well, no, my brother's life is worth more than your brother's life. And if it plays anything like the games, it's going to be a common through line that we see more and more of. And so there's part of me that felt like they're beating this pretty hard into us now.
A little too much is my point. Like, they're almost letting that message get in the way of effective character writing, because it's like, we need you to understand that people are making these decisions already. So because like now it feels like this is where it's going. Like, it's like when Joel makes this decision, we want you to understand that he is no worse or better than other people you've seen doing this already.
It's saying, like, we will do bad things because we justify it with love. And you see it in like movies all the time, right? When someone's willing to trade like a bunch of people's, it's like the reverse trolley rule. They'll trade like 1,000 lives just to save a loved one. And like from a purely rational perspective, like, probably shouldn't do that. And there is nothing that says like my family's life is of higher moral value than yours, generally speaking. And you know, who are we to make these judgments? But in a time like this, like, that's all these people have is those connections, and they're willing to like just completely forsake the things they do. And then there's a lot of consequences. So these are like, this is an episode about consequences, the consequences of Henry turning in Kathleen's brother, and the consequences of Joel helping them, and the consequences of, at the end, I think Joel starting to feel that same bond with Ellie that Henry and Sam have, that Kathleen and her brother have. And like, what does that mean for Joel? How is that going to change his decision making, where he's maybe a bit more objective? And now is he going to lose that? Is he going to put himself in risky situations? I mean, these are all things we're going to see. And I really liked Henry and Sam. The actors were great. The kid, Sam Kayvon Woodard, did you hear the story about how he got cast? Apparently they wanted, so one of the key differences is it follows the Sam and Henry, their storyline is quite similar, except Sam's a bit older and they're not running from like Kathleen, but they are like on the run. And one of the big changes, they made Sam deaf, which is cool. Like, it actually works in the context of, oh, this is like someone who's even like less able to take care of themselves without their brother. So it makes like Henry like really like, I am taking care of this kid. And so they wanted to cast a deaf kid, a deaf black kid, right, for this role. And they, I think it was Craig Mazin said, like, they basically got just a handful of people trying to try out. No one they really like. So he's like, literally, I put an open casting call on Twitter. So anyone who, like, you know, meets these like young black deaf, send it or whatever. He said he got just five auditions, and one of them was, and Kayvon, and the kid was like really great, because I think he's never done anything before. And like, I mean, obviously him being deaf makes like the ALS part more effective, and like we believed it because he's obviously grown up with it. But I really loved his like performance and how scared he was, and he almost treated Ellie like Ellie treats Joel, as in like someone to look up to. And I found that quite moving, which I think obviously makes the ending a bit more sad. And Lamar Johnson's Henry was really great too. Like, you could just tell, like, he's a guy who was self-aware but scared and just wanted to like do best by his brother, even if it meant kind of
doing wrong by somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I think what's really interesting is, having, Kevin Woodard with being deaf, it makes sense even narratively, because this is a world where there are creatures that exist that are operating off of ability to hear, right?
Yeah, so maybe his silence actually almost the opposite of what I said, like makes him more valuable, because
it makes him more valuable, but it does make him harder to, like you said, take care of himself, because he still can't hear the other infected. It's just for this one specific kind. And again, the other thing is, and I appreciate this about the show does kind of, at this point, it's really making it clear the infected are a threat, but they're not as much of a threat as everything else.
They're controllable. I mean, it obviously depends where you're at, but it seems like with enough equipment and like the Fedra has training and stuff like that, like they can generally make an area relatively habitable where the things you're worried about, as long as you're staying in your area, won't be the infected. It's really the behavior of other humans.
It may be just more like what a lot of us normally worry about on a daily basis. It's just in this world, people have been displaced by the cordyceps. In a lot of ways, it feels more like you've been displaced by them. And when you intrude into their area, it becomes a problem. But it's less that they're like a zombie threat that's a constant, overwhelming threat. Like,
yeah.
And I appreciate that, but at the same time, like, it makes it harder in some of the things that happen towards the end of this episode to believe that some of these characters are that stupid, because like this is 20 years on, they would just like get in their cars and leave, is my point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't, I find it back to Kansas City, like again, because this is like out in kind of the suburbs. And so I don't know, like, it's just, what's interesting is the way that they're treating the infected. I appreciate it because the show is so not about the infected in a way that the video game has to be, to add that in so that you have something to constantly be fighting. Yeah. But I appreciate that in the show, we really have taken the cordyceps and kind of just used it as similar in a lot of ways to the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, where they're there, we know they're there. And if you're a certain character in a certain part of the map of Westeros, they may be a bigger threat than not. But like you said, a lot of the people in the world of The Last of Us are just living in these QZs, and that they're just living a normal life best that they can, but they're not constantly worried about the infective threat coming into the QZ. Because in Kansas City, I mean, clearly they were destroyed from within by people, not by the infected.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it said like the one thing Fedra was good at is they drove all of the infected underground and they basically killed them all, although it had been several years since that happened. And I guess Fedra had probably been running sweeps and stuff like that. So this was, you know, it sounds like Fedra was really bad, but the one service they provided was an important one.
Right.
And
it was the service that you would hope they'd provide. Right.
And it was one Kathleen, I think, let vengeance get in front of. And the thing is, like, this was only 2 weeks after the fact as all these infected came up. So it's like, if they had taken longer to catch Henry, who knows like how much worse it would have even been.
Right. Which I think is interesting because we do see a character from the video game introduced that would have been introduced, 2 episodes ago, the bloater.
Right.
The bloater is interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know how do you feel about the way the bloater just kind of shows up and happens? I'm curious because again, like in the video game, we talked a little bit about it on the last episode. Like in the video game, it feels pretty ham-fisted because you need, like, you're at the end of this kind of chapter of the game. Boss. And you need a boss to fight or some threat that is a little bit more overwhelming than just a bunch of infected. So it makes sense narratively there. I'm curious what was kind of your take here of just this end scene with the bloater coming up, and it's like, oh my God, here's this giant thing that almost doesn't even seem like tonally it belongs in the world that it's in.
So I think there's a few things going on. That follows like a really intense sequence that's straight out of the game with the sniper, right?
Right.
So there's a sniper holding Joel and Ellie and Sam and Henry back. And Joel has to sneak around into a house. And this is as they're trying to escape in the game Pittsburgh, in this Kansas City. That's almost the exact same, except it's now dark. The sniper sucks. And there's not like just random goons to kill. And so that feeds into the biggest amount of essentially zombie cordyceps violence we've seen. Joel kills this like old man who's kind of like suicide by cop.
Suicide by Joel.
Yeah, and it's quite sad. Like
he's begging him, "Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't make me do it!" Yeah. He's like, "Don't make me do it! Like, don't make me do it!" Because you know what he means.
Yeah, this guy, he's done, living, and then that sequence leads to Kathleen and everyone coming, and the accident, which essentially unleashes the cordyceps, and that whole sequence I thought was quite cool. And yeah, the bloater pops out, and as someone who liked the game, I was like, I don't know, like it was cool. Like,
right, it was cool.
Rip Perry's head off. I mean, could you have removed it and like this episode still generally plays the same way? Sure, but honestly, it's cool, and sometimes it's cool to just have cool gnarly shit happen. And I didn't really have a problem with it.
But you do get what I mean. Like in the video game, it makes sense. In the show, it's like, what? I mean, again, like I am not saying I have a problem with it at all. But you and I do both kind of, I think, agree a little bit, at least see some common ground of like, it didn't need to be there. It doesn't add anything. It does look cool. And it's cool that they're referencing the game because, yes, this is adapted from the game. So why wouldn't you reference it? But it's not like they're like, there's a bloater. It's just like, what the fuck is that thing? Which is the response in the game as well. I mean, it's not like they're calling it a bloater in the game. They're just like, what the actual fuck? So
remember, most people haven't even seen clickers, right?
Right. Well, and that's the thing with Henry and Sam. It's like, you saw a clicker. It's like, again, I like that and that's what kind of was feeding into what I was saying earlier of this idea that like the infected are a threat, but it's not like everybody's seen a clicker. Like, and it would stand to reason if Henry and Sam are reacting that way, that if you run into a clicker, like you're fucking toast.
Dead. And so it also makes sense that no one really would have seen bloaters, right? If people rarely see clickers. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I thought that sequence was pretty awesome.
Well, the bloater kills Perry the way you would die in the game if you got near the bloater, which is the gnarliest way to die in that game, with the bloater just essentially sticking his hands in your mouth and ripping your face off. So
I listened to the podcast that they do, the Last of Us podcast with like Neil Druckmann. And he said he originally asked them to see if they could just rip Perry in half. But he's like, people don't rip well across the waistline. So they just went with like what they did in the video game.
Which is much gnarlier, I think. Like having something stick its like hands into your like face.
Yeah.
And then just go is, I mean, there's a reason it works in the game. There's a reason it works here. And the way that they do it here works where it's essentially done in silhouette and you don't see anything. Like, I think that works because, again, those creatures aren't even the point of that scene. The point of that scene is Melanie Lynskey getting to Henry and having that moment of kind of, you know, what if he was meant to die? Like all of that, just like posturing shit that Melanie Lynskey is doing is so good because she's just, by this point, she's just like, she ignores the fact that they're infected. Let's just put it that way.
What'd you think about like the way that whole sequence was set up from when Joel kills the sniper to the rebels like getting there to, you know, almost killing Henry and then like all the infected show up? Like how did you feel about it?
I thought it was really well done for a show that we haven't seen. Like ostensibly this is like what the second action set piece we've seen. Because we had Bill and Frank with that kind of him standing in the field or like in the middle of the road shooting at people. And then there's this, right? Like
you kind of have the one where the infected run in when Tess sort of sacrifices herself.
Right.
I mean, it's probably the closest thing we've had to that. But this is like really like everything's just happening at once. You have cars going, people shooting, running, infected humans fighting infected. Like this is like about as big as anything we've seen in The Last of Us, and as big as anything I can recall in the games as far as like infected being involved. Like in the game, the sequence is actually you as Joel as a sniper shooting infected while Ellie and everyone tries to come to you.
Right.
So it was cool that they kind of incorporated that as well.
I liked it. I will tell you, like, this is where I stopped in the video. I haven't gotten to this point in the video game yet. I haven't played it because I just didn't know past where I was. So now I know, and now I know where I can stop. So I will tell you, the setup felt very Party. It felt very video gamey. The setup does, having Joel, like again, like that, like when I saw that, I was like, man, that must be what you do in the game. That must be what's going on with you in the game, looking down the sniper scope, and like it is, right? Which is perfectly fine in the scope and scheme of a video game. It makes sense. I think it works well enough here. I think we've seen things like that before. But to your point, like if you've played a video game before, you've undoubtedly either been the character sniping other people off or the one utilizing the overwatch of a sniper. So it felt very like, okay, if this is where this is, I bet it's just like this in the game. Outside of that, it was well shot and well edited. I didn't really lose track of the action. And there were moments where, you know, Ellie is in the car and
creepy zombie girl.
Yeah, and the little clickers in the car with it, like that. That's a nice kind of moment, a quieter moment in this kind of very loud action set piece. So I think it's nice that they even had in these bigger kind of action set pieces some quieter moments. And I like that the bloater doesn't just show up immediately. That it's like you have all of this kind of stuff going on. And then the bloater shows up. And that's kind of like the moment where everybody's like, we have to fucking leave now. And I appreciate that too. I appreciate that Joel's not like, smile, you son of a bitch, Jaws style, like blows up the bloaters. And they just leave. They're like, let's get the fuck out of here. And that would be anybody's reasonable response here, which is why showing Melanie Linsky's character doing what she's doing at the end of the scene totally works. Where she's like, nah, fuck this. Like, this has gone to shit now. Everything has gone to shit. I am going to come and kill you if it is the last thing that I do. And it is the last thing that she does.
Yeah.
And she gets it pretty good. Like, she gets it real good. She gets the shit beat out of her by an infected. Like,
an eye for an eye and the whole world goes blind, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that whole sequence. She gets Henry, and Henry's like, you know, he's just a kid or a fucking kid or whatever. And she's like, of course I betrayed your brother. And she's like, kids die all the time. And she's so matter of fact, but she's right. Like, even before this world, like, kids did die, and it didn't justify, you know, the kinds of things that Henry did. Like, what Henry did, you could say was a bad thing, but then, like, now Melanie Linsky, this is all that drives her, and it dooms her rebellion essentially, because
compounding, it's compounding bad things with bad things, like
things, and exactly, and like that's a through line. It's like bad begets bad, and then the decision is: do you continue the bad because something bad happened, or do you try to do something different?
Right.
And we'll see where Joel and Ellie go with this, and like if they learn or if it's unclear. But
the inevitability of the ending is feeling more and more inevitable the longer this show goes on. Which I think, though, to be fair, and I've said this before on other podcasts, the best kind of endings, the most satisfying endings, are the ones that feel ultimately inevitable per the way the narrative gives. Like, the narrative is leading us to the ending, and if it feels like all the pieces have set into place, whether or not we like it, like the ending, which, like you've said, you resonated with The Last of Us, the game's ending, in a very specific way. Like, the puzzle pieces were set there. You could see how they got to the ending. Even if you don't like it, it felt inevitable. And like, now with the way the show is kind of being a little heavy-handed, but heavy-handed for the sake of argument is what it feels like. The inevitability of where we're going feels inevitable now. Like, it feels like this episode, almost more than anything else up to this point, feels like, well, if I was confused or concerned that they were going to change the ending, I don't think they're going to now. They may change it a little bit, but I don't think they're going to change the main beats at this point.
I agree. And like, Kathleen gets a chance where Perry's like, go back. And she's like, no. And then she gets another chance when she gets up to Joel and them, and like, she holds the gun up to Henry and Sam. And then Joel's like, just leave. And she's like, no, again.
I can't even comprehend this idea. Like,
and the clicker gets her. And like, that's, in her mind, that's justice. Justice is blood for blood, flesh for flesh. Like, and I think what the show is showing us is like, it's, you know, a way to think about justice, but it's probably not the most effective way. And,
right.
And like, when that like drives you and becomes all you think about, you lose the bigger picture. Ultimately, the reason they're in a situation where there's Fedra, and when Fedra's being like shitty, and why her brother's leading a rebellion, is because of the infected, right? And to the point of, well, you know, we don't really see it in the show. Like, she's almost acting like that's not a huge priority, and it is. It's way more than finding Henry and Sam.
It's the priority of the world is to keep your people safe.
Especially you are now the leader of these people. You're supposed to shepherd them. And like
her brother would have. And that's the thing. Like, she is a shitty leader. She is focused. Like, shitty leaders do not put themselves and their causes before their people. And they don't hoist their people on the petard of their causes, which is what's going on here.
It's like, you know, the military coups, right? Like, okay, it's effective at overthrowing, but then you need like actual, like, not a general or whatever as a leader. You need like someone who can lead and manage. So
right.
It's like, she can get you there, but she's not very good at governing. And
wartime generals don't make good peacetime presidents, I feel like.
Yeah.
I like Melanie Linsky is a pretty good. I mean, again, like you said, in the game, I'm sure you see the Fedra agents strung up and stuff, but like to even that end, it's like, would that have been what her brother was doing? Like,
no, I mean, we know he wouldn't have.
Right. So like, again, like it's this further kind of like perverting of the message of like, all right, now I'm in charge and I'm going to utilize his platform to pervert the message and turn it into this like kill Fedra fest. Because again, like by them killing Fedra, they doom themselves. Right. Like,
well, because they don't do the one thing that Fedra was doing. And like she even says her brother told her to forgive Henry. Like, her brother said that to her and she's like, I don't care. So So at this point, it's not really about what her brother wanted or keeping his dream alive. It's just
Right.
doing what makes her feel good or makes her feel right. People that rigid don't last. And it leads to her doom. And I think it also leads to a really effective respite. Like the ending seems like it's going to be a happy ending, and then you get something. They escaped Kathleen, but it's like, oh shit! Like, no, you didn't. Like, there's still more bad stuff happening. And I know we talked about Ellie and like how much we were digging her and stuff. And I think this was probably the best Bella Ramsey episode. I think her interface with Sam, like you could really see that like she is just a kid, but like she wants to teach and like she is learning, but she can also interact with the adults. And I feel like she's starting to come into her own a bit more. And this was the episode I think she shined the most for me.
I agree. I did myself a disservice by watching some Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal HBO like promotional stuff where she looks more like the 19-year-old that she is and less like the 14-year-old she's portraying on the show. But to your point, her and Sam playing off one another allows her to feel like a kid the way the show wants us to and the way the game does. Because the game makes her feel like more of a kid. But I mean, Bella Ramsey is good enough of an actress that you kind of forget her actual age being an adult.
She does look quite young.
Yeah, she looks young enough. Yeah, she looks young enough where it's like I can forget. But again, she's a good enough actress where she can rise to the occasion when it's needed to be a little bit more adult. But she is also a good enough actress that she can be more childlike and it's believable. And her and Sam feel less like, it feels like less like an adult and a kid, but more like two kids together, which is not something we've seen with Ellie at all. In this show, it's been her around adults and now her around someone younger than her. She takes on kind of a mentorship brother sister role, but at the same time, like it feels more brother sister than Henry and Sam do, because Henry and Sam feel more father and son.
Yeah. I mean, Henry's his brother, but I mean, he is his caretaker. Like,
right.
And I think by making Sam younger, like it makes it even more like that than in the game. Like, did you know where the Henry Sam story was going? Have you gotten that far in the game?
No, but I knew it wasn't going to end happily because nothing in this show/movie ever does. Show/game never does. I mean, nothing happens in the game that doesn't end up having something like negative smashed right on it. Like,
I loved his little like writing pad. Like they're so genius if you're like deaf. Like obviously that's like the perfect thing. It's infinitely reusable. Like that conversation I had with Ellie though about like, are you turned into a monster? And I like the fact that she even tried to heal him with her blood. Like it shows like, maybe she's starting to kind of, I don't say like get higher on own supply, but like believe like I can actually do something. Obviously just rubbing her blood isn't enough, but the fact that she was willing to try that and like her first instinct wasn't to tell Joel, and it was like, let me see if I can fix this because I want this kid to survive. And unfortunately he gets infected and that leads to the end. Do you want to talk about the ending sequence?
Yeah, the ending's pretty rough. I mean, obviously there's no way it wasn't going to be, but Sam attacks Ellie. They do the out in from another room and it wakes everybody up.
Sam was bitten because of the action sequence.
We never see, similarly to Tess, we never see when he was bitten, but he was bitten at some point on the leg by an infected, and he, in the middle of the night, turns, as you would expect him to, because he's more than likely not immune. And then he and Ellie fight through a doorway, essentially, into the next room, and Joel goes for the gun. Henry grabs the gun, points it at Joel, then points it at Sam, then shoots Sam, then goes, "What have I done? I can't believe I did that," then shoots himself. It is a emotionally exhausting sequence. And I expected it to be. Like, I wouldn't expect anything less from this show. I mean, look, it's a pretty neat little subversion. I mean, I think if you saw this episode and you'd never seen the show or the game, I think you would think something is up when you see them in the hotel after everything happened. I'm sure you'd be like, oh, there's something else going on maybe. But that doesn't diminish the emotional impact, because we've gone on a journey, even if it is one episode, essentially, with Henry and Sam. And these are characters that I think are likable and are not like Melanie Linsky, where it's like, all right, she kind of deserved it. Like, this is, you understand why Henry does what he does, even if I could not condone it any more than a lot of people would, because suicide's something hard to watch in media. And like, it's hard and they don't show it. And I'm glad. But again, like, the scene is emotionally impacting enough that It's rough, but I think it's effective.
Yeah, that's taken straight out of the game. Sam attacks Ellie, Henry shoots him, and then like in the realization of what he's done, he doesn't even like have time to process, just puts the gun on himself because he's lost the one thing that he's been tasked to protect. And there's actually like a quote that Kathleen said earlier that I think is very central to the story of The Last of Us. And she says, you think the whole world revolves around him, talking about Sam, that he's worth everything. And like we see, I mean, that's like if I could say that one quote, what is The Last of Us? That's what I would say. And Henry, like to him, Sam was everything. And maybe he could have had a life afterwards and like come with them or gone on his own, but he's just so like in it and can't believe what he's done. And Joel tries to calm him down, but yeah, he just turns the gun on himself. And it is tragic. Like, I feel like that was more tragic than anything we've seen because Joel didn't really have a choice when it was about losing his daughter.
Right.
Tess chose to sort of go out the way she did, but she was gone. Like Bill and Frank actually kind of had a weird happy ending. This is
not kind of. They did have a happy.
They had their own happy ending.
They were going to get the happiest of endings that this show will ever grant any of the characters. I think I could say that. I think I could say that concretely that there will be no set of characters in this show that get a happy ending the way those two did, even close to a happy ending.
But Henry, even losing Sam, could have made a life, but he just couldn't fathom it. Like
he could have gone on with Ellie and Joel.
Yeah. And maybe if he had more time, like process what had happened, but it's just so rapid,
Didn't give himself time, which I mean, again, like I have never been in that situation, so I can't imagine what a fictional character is going through. But that felt inevitable. That didn't feel like there was any way that he wasn't going to do that if that happened.
So you felt like when you saw that happen, you weren't like, oh, he's going to go with you. You thought,
no, I was like, I'm waiting for that moment to happen because he's not going to give that gun to Joel. It's just not going to happen. And again, like it makes sense from the way this character was written and the sacrifices that the character had made for him to go, I just shot the person that I did all of this for, and I didn't have a choice in the matter. He didn't have a choice. It's not like he shot him because he wanted to. He shot him because he literally had to.
And he knew.
Right. And I think I think it's that moment of like, because I'm sure if you put yourself in the shoes of the character, it's partially, I just had to kill my own brother, but it's also putting into perspective everything that happened in the evening before and how now like they're on the other side of it. And it, like you said, the shadow of Melanie Linsky's character looms large even at the end of this episode, because of her, this happens almost directly.
And then, because she pursued them.
Right.
And then you get the sequence where Joel and Ellie are burying them, which is like, I was watching that and I was thinking like, Joel probably wouldn't bury people like going back to he's very practical and pragmatic, right? Like he cared. I think he did care. Like I think he did connect with Henry and Ellie did, but I think they did that more. It was more for Ellie's benefit than I don't think Joel would have done that in a normal circumstance with someone. Like he didn't bury Bill and Frank, right?
They also asked not to be buried.
Not to,
these are the first people I think he's had the opportunity to bury. Is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, but I guess
he didn't bury Bill and Frank. He didn't bury his daughter, best we can tell. Yeah. I'm assuming maybe he did. Again, we never see that. It's never mentioned in the game. Like Tess, he didn't get to bury. In the game, she's shot dead, and there's nothing left to bury. I don't know. I'm with you. I think again, like it goes back to what I was saying last episode, where Joel is a softer character in the show than he is in the game. The character in the game would not have done that. I agree with you, but I think that to have Pedro Pascal but to have Pedro Pascal and Ellie or Bella Ramsey not bury these two characters, I feel like that's more also for the audience's benefit, right? Like you would maybe feel like they're not emotionally in tune characters, even on a base level, if they're not willing to bury the two people that helped get them out of Kansas City.
How did you feel about like what do you think Joel's thinking in that moment as he's burying them? And Ellie puts that thing, says I'm sorry, and leaves.
I mean, I know what Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin have said, and I think that they've done a pretty good job of kind of giving us as an audience a consistent lingering shot on Pedro Pascal is always a good thing because we just get to see the emotions that he can kind of embody and conjure up as an actor. And I mean, look, if you don't know where this is going, you're in for it. let's just put it that way. If you do know where this is going, we're still in for it because like you and I both know this show's ending is going to be rough. Like it's going to be real rough. I don't think people are ready for it. And I think people are going to be really angry because you were really angry. But again, like anger not at the narrative, but anger at this makes sense. I just can't believe you're actually doing it. And like, it's that you see that look on his face that he knows he's going to have to make a choice. And that choice may impact him negatively, whatever it is.
I think it's that he's turning into Henry. He's like the way Henry felt about Sam. I'm like, for the first time in 20 years, I'm starting to like feel this thing again where I'm going to put someone above me.
Right.
Whether that's right or wrong thing to do. Like, I mean, obviously Ellie is is an analog for his daughter, right? I don't know if he's thinking like, she is my daughter right now, but we're seeing that open. And then he's like, well, what happens if a situation like this happens? Like, what would Joel do? And I think that's the rest of the season is what would Joel do? So,
I mean, I think, obviously the show, this is a pivot point for the show, right? We're about to be going to Wyoming. We're finally going to see Joel around a character that we haven't seen him around at this point, which is his brother. And like where it goes from there is going to be drastically different from what we've seen so far. And I'm excited for that, but I'm also kind of apprehensive because I have liked everything that we've seen so far. So I wonder what this pivot is going to look like and what the showrunners are going to have in store for the next kind of half, because it's probably the next half of the show, right? I think the next half is probably going to be continuing the story of Ellie's journey to the West Coast. Because this has been that's been the main point here, but the last couple episodes feel like they're kind of trying to get us to understand the message of the show more than anything else.
It's getting us to a place, but also like really starting to solidify that Joel and Ellie relationship, which I know a few episodes ago you weren't buying it totally. Like you weren't buying that it's going to be where it needs to be. And I think they're doing the work. And honestly, I agree. Of the 5 episodes so far, even though the Bill and Frank one might be more memorable because it's a little more idiosyncratic, this I think was the best episode of the show to me. Like you had the action, you had the tragedy, you had the good Joel and Ellie dynamic, and like it had everything. It had the darkness of the people, it had the cordyceps, and it had some like strangely it had some questionable ethical dilemmas. So
which I feel like is like part and parcel with The Last of Us at this point. Questionable ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, but I mean, I was like, this has everything I could possibly want from this show. Was like this episode. Like it was hard for me to poke any hole or complain about anything. I was like, no, this gives me everything I could possibly want. If I was like, maybe I say, oh, it's almost too close to the show. But even like the little details they change, like making Sam younger and deaf, and making the sniper in the house an old man rather than just like some Goomba who wants to kill you.
Goombas. That's a different video game, pal.
Sorry, Chris Pratt. Don't come after me in my sleep.
Go.
But I just like, I'm like, all right, you know what? They realize the stuff that works narratively and the little things they're tweaking make it a more effective narrative. Like the little changes they've done, I think every single one of them, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I like it. Okay, let's see what happened to Fedra agents and who's leading that. Let's see what happens, to someone who's lived in a world for this long, like that old guy, like how they would feel if they were given a chance to keep living or not. Like,
right.
So all of these things, I found it just made really good. And the we get an extra conversation with Ellie and Sam, and Ellie tries to help Sam. Like that was all new and just adds context to the character. Doesn't change the character, but it just makes us a little bit closer, because one thing we have in the show where I don't have a game is like, we don't need constant action or forward momentum. And we don't just have to focus on our 2 leads. We can kind of let the world around them breathe and let them, like, by being more passive in how we're consuming it, it makes the show, I think, click from like a more, I don't know if the word is holistic, but like we can see it from a broader perspective. And I find that's working really well.
Well, I think that ultimately, if you or I or anybody worth their salt as a writer or adapter or producer, we're making this show. That's the important thing here, is less on the ground constantly, but more understanding how the world exists as well. And again, there are ways they do that in the video game, like the notes that you can find, which they reference here in the game. Ish. They reference Ish in the show, and they have that in the bunker that they kind of find, which is, again, literally only for like a certain group of people who are watching the show, right? Because that means nothing. Right. That means nothing to a large portion of the people watching the show. So all of that aside, I think you're right. I mean, it would have been a mistake to just focus on Ellie and Joel the entire time, because that is the game. That if you want that, that's the game, because you don't play as anybody else in the game. You're Joel the entire time. It's the Joel and Ellie story from start to finish. I like that the show, to your point, is not less interested in telling their story, but more interested in telling a whole story of the world and how the world is existing and these two people's place in it. And I think that the intro for the show does a good job of informing what this show is going to be. The opening animation shows the world, and then you see the two people, but the world, I mean, again, this is ultimately a world spanning issue that these two characters are at the center of. The rest of the world doesn't even know that. And the weight of the world is on their shoulders. And I think that maybe that's being underplayed, but I think it's also important because by the end of the show, we'll get to see what it means to internalize that knowledge and also disregard it in a way. And I'm excited to see where the show goes from here, because to your point, it feels like from here on out, we're going to get to see the real show. Like, we're going to get to see what this show actually is going to be for the next 5 episodes, 4 or 5, whatever it is. But this was the halfway point now. So I think from here on out, we're going to see a very kind of tonally consistent show. And it's going to be a little bit different than what we've seen, because the characters don't have to be traveling constantly. They can kind of sit around and wait and have more of a quieter moment with some of these characters, like Joel's brother. So we'll see. I'm excited. This is the moment where the show may pick up or it may stumble. I don't know. I mean, again, it's gonna be interesting either way.
If it's anything like seems to be following the main beats, like it's not getting much happier. Like we're gonna have, I think, a lot more focus on the human element and like the darkness that is within people and how different people are surviving. And so, it's going to be interesting to see how that translates to the screen. And I'm interested to see like how much more clicker stuff they're going to incorporate within the show as well. Like, I wonder if it's not a deal breaker or anything, but I wonder if this is the last we've seen of a lot of clickers for a while.
Is that the case in the game?
No, I mean they're constantly throughout, but obviously it's they're rarely the main thrust of the story. It's more of like you're getting through them to get to the next place you want to get to. You're getting through them to get to the next place you want to get to. So obviously you don't need that in this, right? Like we don't need to follow Joel and Ellie for 4 hours straight walking. Fight clickers would be interesting, but I wonder if are they going to continue to be this just kind of in the background, or we're going to still get more of like we got in this episode, sort of more traditional zombie type of feel. So I'm just curious to see how they handle. I think they've been doing a good job of balancing both so far.
I agree. I mean, this kind of thing really is a balancing act, because you don't want it to be a typical zombie show like The Last of Us could be, which is The Walking Dead or all these other shows and properties that are just, it's just a zombie thing. But like this, I feel like this is trying to be more, and I think it's succeeding at being more. But whether or not that success will carry through to the rest of the season and then a second season, I think to your point remains to be seen, because some people are watching this show for the zombie adjacent stuff. Not everybody, but again, like if you've seen the source material, what the expectations are in a lot of ways. And I think for me, as someone who hasn't finished the first game, but has been playing along with the show, it has done a good job of kind of satisfying what I was hoping the show would be from a purely zombie cordyceps adjacent thing. I think it's succeeding. I wonder, because to your point, like some of this is just about how bad people are, which has nothing to do with zombies or zombie related things. So
I think it kind of takes a lot of the things that The Walking Dead tried to do. It did in some ways well, but maybe due to the nature just Walking Dead lasted so long. But I think they're doing it a bit more effectively and concise.
I think they're being a little subtler about it and a little less heavy-handed. And when they are being heavy-handed, it doesn't feel overbearing. Like with Melanie Linsky's character, like that's intentionally overbearing and it totally works. If it were The Walking Dead, it would feel like Negan does, where it's like, all right, we get it. Like, all right, like you're going to keep going, just doing that one thing. All right. Like we're just going to give him a lot of time too. All right. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like you to that point, like, would a character like Negan survive that long if they were just like that all the time for a long extended period of time? And we see, like, Last of Us says, you got to adapt, Kathleen.
Right.
If you're not going to adapt, you're going to get fucked by these things because you're too busy focusing on this other thing, and everything is dangerous.
Right.
It's not just one thing. So, great episode. Like, it's like, I don't want to be like 10 out of 10, but I was like, I can't really complain about anything in this episode. So maybe it was a 10 out of 10.
Again, I kind of just had the problem with the early yada yadaing, but I mean, again, like, the show hasn't done a lot of yada yadaing up until this point, so I kind of maybe should give it a little bit more of a pass than I have. But I agree.
You were complaining about not seeing enough of the Doctor. You're the actor.
I'm glad he came. I'm glad he came back. I'm glad he came back. I'm glad they brought John Getz back. I mean, hey, I'm not going to complain about that. I mean, again, but it was a little like just yada yada. Like, we got to get, like, I get it. Like, I get it. I get why they did it. But like, even for this show, it felt a little atypical for this show. I get why they had to. Should they have given Henry and Sam an entire episode? I don't know. If another show might have. This show didn't. Like, I mean, again, another show would have given Bill and Frank less and given Henry and Sam more. Like, that's in my mind, that's kind of where this pivot point is, right? Like, if it wasn't a Bill and Frank episode, they probably would have given Henry and Sam a whole episode. So I think the way it panned out, I'm okay. Like, 6 doesn't half the other. I think the Bill and Frank episode was so unexpectedly good that this episode is good. I think this episode had different directions it could have gone and built those characters out more. But by the end of it, I mean, it tells such a compelling story that, you're just exhausted at the end of this episode because it's a lot. And that is this show. Like, this show reflects the video game's claustrophobically overwhelming nature really where it's like, you can't, everywhere you look, it's awful. And you just can't, there's no escape. Even when you do think you escape and you're in a hotel room and there's nothing and you think you've gotten away, you can't escape it. And like that, I appreciate that about this narrative because, yes, it is overwhelmingly depressive and it is overwhelmingly just like constantly beating you over the head with how terrible the world is. But with this kind of narrative, it kind of needs it because like you have to understand, like we've been talking about the depths to which society has sunk, which then informs the lengths of which people are willing to go to achieve whatever it is for whatever reason. And for this show specifically, it's talking about how does, like you've mentioned, how does love factor into making decisions that are beyond unpalatable almost without any other reason. So I'm excited. I mean, again, I'm still on board with this show. This show is, I think we'd both agree, the show's really good, which in and of itself is not surprising anymore that it's good. But if you had told me before the show aired, like we would be really enjoying the show a lot, I'd be like, good. Because again, it's a video game thing.
Yeah.
And video game things aren't this good normally. If ever, frankly, I kind of forget that this is a video game sometimes, which is, a good thing, really.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. Can't wait for next week's. Hope we have a Super Bowl every week so we get it 2 days early.
Right.
Super Bowl. I'm sorry, Roger Goodell. I'm sorry.
When will the owl be here?
Super Bowl.
We've given him the Brain Scramblies. That's the Brain Scramblies episode, isn't it?
Yeah, with the neighbor.
Yeah, Shawnee. See that show is a good palate cleanser for this show. Watch an episode of this show, and then watch like 4 episodes of that show.
Actually, some episodes have more death than Last of Us does, but it's a lot easier to swallow.
Yeah, boy, isn't that the case? So on the next episode of Mushrooms and Men, we're going to be talking about the 6th episode of The Last of Us, which is titled Kin. Until then, Yashar and I can be found at weirdingwaymedia.com, where him and I do a little show called Game of Bros, The House of the Dragon, where we talked about another show that was really surprisingly good, more surprisingly good than this one was. Like, yeah, I don't think this was going to be bad, but that show I had no expectations for.
So next one's called Kin. So, I mean, Tommy, it sounds like it's probably going to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Episode. Yeah. I forget you don't watch the post episode teaser.
I did watch the interview, but I didn't see the teaser for next episode. So no, I missed that.
They like the first thing they showed was like Tommy, like Pedro Pascal saying it, and then like them hugging. So yeah, I'm excited to see an injection of new characters and kind of what they bring to the Ellie and Joel dynamic.
Yeah, because Tommy is an interesting character in the games. I think in 1 I like him more than in 2. So I think I'll enjoy him. And I like Diego Luna. I say this is a Ghost Rider truther because he was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Is Ghost Rider for like a couple episodes.
Like half a season. He's supposed to get his own show, but you know.
I feel like a lot of people could say that about Marvel. We were supposed to get this. I'm sure you were.
Anyway, justice for Ghost Rider.
Maybe someday we'll do Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. something. I've never watched that show, and I've heard how weird it is.
It's so good. It's so good.
Are you being serious,
bro?
Bro.
So the thing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the first season, the first like half of the first season is like just okay. You're like, but then when it gets, because the first few seasons especially were really in concert with the Marvel movies, like where things happen and then like really went into the show.
Right.
Once the Winter Soldier thing happens, where like Hydra is S.H.I.E.L.D. and obviously it's called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so how does it impact them? Like once that twist happens, it's just straight fire.
Interesting.
Banger after banger after banger after banger after banger after banger, and it's weird episodes after banger after banger after banger.
You're the only person I know who watched that show and has anything to say about it. So
it's bangers only, bro. Bangers only.
Bangers bus. They're going on the bus to the bangers.
They're going on the bus to the bangers, yes, and the mash. Everyone in between episodes of Last of Us, watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., please.
That's a weird counterpoint, but hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But yeah, you can find more of Yashar and I talking esoterically about pop culture over at weirdingwaymedia.com. As for this show, you can find us, Weirding Way Media. So yeah, check us out there, follow us there, like, rate, and review the show wherever the hell you get it, be it Spotify, iTunes, or whatever platform you're pulling us into your lives through. As always, we'll be back on the next episode.